A very warm welcome to lesson number 33 in our 50-part series on the law of evidence. In today's lesson, we will focus on when character is made relevant under the Indian Evidence Act. Also, we will contrast this with what we find in section 14, which talks of the state of mind or bodily feeling. But more specifically, we will talk about the state of mind. So, to understand this lesson properly, make sure you have a look at section 14. And you also look at the sections from sections 52 to 55. So once again, let me remind you that we are studying the relevancy of facts. What does that mean? If a fact is relevant, it means you can give evidence for that, right? Of course, thereafter, before it is finally admitted, it also has to follow the rules of admissibility, and then the evidence would be appreciated. So we are studying relevancy, and we see relevancy in chapter 2 of the Indian Evidence Act, which extends from section 5 to 55. And the sections from 6 to 55 either declare a certain set of facts to be relevant or not to be relevant. As you can see, section 55 here marks the end of chapter 2. Pay attention to this heading. It talks about when character is relevant. Character when relevant, and you have the sections from 52 to 55. Before I get into the section as such, I want you to scroll to the end of this section. So after section 55, you find an explanation here, right? So you have the sections from 52 to 55, followed by an explanation that is after section 55. It is important for us to see this explanation in some greater detail. So this is the explanation that you find after section 55. I'm starting with this explanation because it tells you something important about what the meaning of character is. It says that in sections 52, 53, 54 and 55, the word character includes both reputation and disposition. These are two very important words. That character, the explanation tells you, that character includes both reputation and disposition. I'll get to the later part of this in a bit, but first let me explain the meanings of these two words to you. Perhaps you can already guess it, and it's good if you can. So, reputation is basically what others think of you. So what your estimation is in the eyes of others. So I can kind of say that reputation is what lies of you in the others' eyes, right? In the eyes of others. Whereas disposition is basically what you actually are, right? It is actually what you are in fact. What you are in fact. What a person is in fact, right? So reputation is something that others think of you. What you are really is your disposition. So both of these fall within the gamut of what is called character. That's the first important point that you have to notice about the explanation, which is why we are studying the explanation in the beginning. There's something more, and that's very important about character that is also explained in this explanation. I want to remind you one thing of how to read a statute. As you can see, it becomes a long and complicated sentence if I were to ask you to read it by your own self now. In fact, I'd really encourage you at this point. It will really help you. It would help you a lot. Therefore, I insist that you actually pause the video and try making sense of this whole long sentence by your own self. As you can see, from this point where it starts and where it ends, this is basically one long sentence. So in fact, I'd say pause the video, take 2 minutes maybe to gauge the meaning of this section, and then proceed with the video. So I hope you've done that, and now I'll tell you a little bit of a technique which I've told you in the past, but I'm repeating here, on how to break down a large sentence and then gather the meaning from it. So you see here this part which lies between two commas. So you see this part here, the one that starts here and ends here. It lies between two commas, and it gives you an exception. As you can see, it gives you the word except, right? Which means that there is a rule, okay, and then there is an exception to the rule. It's a good idea to first understand the rule, okay, so that's in your head once, and then you can move on and look at the exception. If you start reading the rule and the exception together, that could create some amount of confusion in your head. Also, grammatically, what you see in here between the commas is what you can consider a clause, and you can always delete the clause from your head and read the rest of it, and you'd find that it makes complete sense, complete grammatical sense, and then you can add that information back, and then process it more comfortably once you've been able to learn the rest of the sentence. Let me demonstrate this to you by striking off that part within the commas. So I strike this out for you, and then we read the sentence. So now see the sentence. It reads, the word character includes both reputation and disposition, but evidence may be given only of general reputation and general disposition. Again, the later part of it says, and not of something else. Well, let's ignore that also for the time being. So it's like if I say, you can give me bread but not butter. Well, let's first understand that I want bread. What I don't want can be seen later on. So let us try to understand the main point here, the main rule, by ignoring these things, okay? So now, what remains on the screen tells you the two most important points about character. The first, that character includes both reputation and disposition. We've already seen this. And then it says, evidence may be given only of general reputation and general disposition. It's very important. Why do you think it should be only of general reputation and general disposition? Let me give you an example. Perhaps that should clarify it for you. Let us say a person does one good deed. Maybe he helps an ailing animal, or maybe one day you find that he's not eating something, or whatever you might consider a good deed. Maybe he helped somebody poor, okay? Can I say that that person is of good character? You see a person, he does a good deed. He maybe saves an animal that is dying, or maybe he gives alms to a poor, hungry person. Can I say that he's of good character? No, because character is not built in a day. It is not determined by one incident. Therefore, when you're talking about character, you have to talk about something general, because if it is specific, then it is not character. So remember, character cannot be determined by single specific incidents. It has to be something more general so that you can make a determination about the character. All right. Now, we've understood the rule, and now I'll gradually add the things back. First, let me add this thing back. What you find here is, it says, except as provided in section 54. Okay. So when we see section 54, I will talk about this with you, and for the time being, I will ignore it, but I will talk about this part when we study section 54 in today's lesson. Let me also add back the last part, which says that evidence may be given of general disposition and not of particular acts. That's what we just discussed. Character is general and not particular. So with this, we have been able to completely understand as to what character is and what character is not. Now, here is section 14. Again, section 14 lies between 5 and 55. It was one of the earlier sections that I had intentionally not dealt with at that point, because it is important to see section 14 along with the provisions relating to character. As you can see here, the state of mind is made relevant by section 14. You can read this provision by your own self. Now that we've gone this far, it is not hard for you to do that. However, why I am showing this to you here is because of the explanation to section 14. Have a look at this explanation. So as you can see, this is the diametric opposite of character. So when we see character, then we want it to be general, right? However, when you're talking about state of mind, right, that should be not general but particular. So when you're talking about the state of mind, you're not talking about the character of a person generally. You are talking about his particular state of mind. So you know as to where particular state of mind is relevant, it is relevant under section 14. However, if it is something more general, then it is relevant as character. So with this, you've understood as to what character is and what state of mind is and where they are relevant in the Indian Evidence Act. Now, on your screen, I have displayed all of the provisions relating to character. And there's a reason for my doing that. It is so that you can clearly see all of these in one go, and you'll realize that it is quite simple to learn when you see them together. So let's first have a look at the provisions. As you can see, we have 52, 53, that is 53A, 54, and then there is 55. Of course, after 55 you have the explanation, but we've already seen that, so I have omitted it from this screen. Now, the outermost sections, which means 52 and 55, as you can see, deal with civil matters. Can you see here? It talks about civil matters. Yeah, civil. Likewise, in 55, you can see that it deals with civil cases. So we know that 52 and 55 deal with civil cases. Okay, that leaves us in the middle with 53, 53A and 54. And you guessed that right. These deal with criminal proceedings. Okay, this also deals with criminal proceedings. Therefore, what we know from here is that 53, 53A and 54 deal with criminal proceedings. Okay, and now I'll explain this to you in some detail as to what is contained in these provisions. As you're already aware, a provision that lies between 5 and 55 is likely to do one of two things. Either it will declare a certain set of facts to be relevant, or it will declare them not to be relevant. And the same thing is happening here as well in the sections from 52, 53, 53A, 54 and 55. Some of them declare cases in which character is relevant. Some others say that it is not relevant. So let us start with 52 and 55, which we just saw, which deal with civil cases. Okay, starting with 52. Section 52 tells you that character is not relevant in civil cases. Very simple. You can read this by your own self. I'm telling you the gist of it. Section 52 says that in civil cases, character is irrelevant, which means evidence cannot be given about the character of a person in a civil case. However, look at section 55, which again deals with civil cases. It says that if the character affects the amount of damages, then character is relevant. Let me give you an example of how character could affect damages. You're perhaps aware that damages could be either for the sake of compensation, right? Which you can also sometimes call punitive or compensatory damages, right? So what you do here is, suppose a damage of X has been caused, then you want that to be compensated for. So the damages is also X, which means, let us say somebody caused another person a loss of 100 rupees. The damages that he has to pay are also 100 rupees. Sometimes the damages are what we understand as nominal, which means that it is only namesake, right? So maybe he has to pay only 2 rupees because he was not very wrong. Then there is another kind of damages which is known as exemplary damages. Okay, what happens in exemplary damages is that maybe the monetary loss is not much, but then it was a very gross mistake. which perhaps happens sometimes when people commit environmental errors, okay? So when there are environmental transgressions and you affect the environment, then you can have what are known as exemplary damages, which are meant to be punitive, right? So I should not have said punitive with compensatory. The exemplary damages are what are punitive, okay? So when you have punitive damages, those are very high damages because the person has misbehaved. So as you can see, the character of a person, the mindset of a person determines how much the damages would be, and therefore that is made relevant under section 55. Now, we look at the cases which deal with the criminal matters. Let us look at sections 53 and 54. Very simple, very straightforward. 53 and 54. Okay. Section 53 says that in criminal proceedings, the good character of a person is relevant. Okay. Good character is relevant. That's what 53 tells you. 54 tells you that in criminal proceedings, bad character is irrelevant, which means you can now say that a person is good, of good character, but you cannot say that a person is bad. And then it gives you an exception, which you see by the word unless. It says, unless evidence has been given that he is of good character. So for example, let us say there's a person A, okay. You can say A is of good character, it is relevant. You cannot say A is of bad character. But let us say someone has said that A is of good character. Now in response to this, let us someone has made a statement whereby it is indicated that A is of good character. Then in response to this, as a reply, then it becomes relevant for evidence of bad character to be given. But if no statement about his good character has been made, then you cannot make a statement about his bad character. Okay. Also, regarding section 54, you might remember that we saw that it was mentioned as a bit of an exception in the definition, in the explanation to section 55. So there was this clause where I asked you to delete it and I said I'll talk about it when I talk about section 54. So the time is now. Have a look at explanation 2. So what we were seeing in the explanation after section 55, this one here after 55, was that it said that the character must deal with general and not specific, not particular. And then it said except as provided for in section 54. Have a look at explanation 2. It says that a previous conviction is an evidence of bad character. You see, a previous conviction, which means a person has been convicted at some point previously, is this general or is this particular? You're right, it is particular, right? Yet, it qualifies as bad character. Therefore, it qualifies as an exception. Okay. So with this, I hope you understood 54 quite well. Take your time, pause the video, open your BEAR Act and read this. It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy, and it's good when you see all of it together. Like I said, in explanation 2 lies your answer to the... Now, we know that it is relevant for character to be spoken of in some cases. However, you must remember that when something is relevant, that alone does not bring it to the court. It just means it can be brought to the court. And thereafter, evidence also requires to be admissible and it requires to be presented to the court. Now that is either done orally or it is done through a document, right? Which basically is, if it's oral, then it's through a witness. And then a witness is examined and cross-examined. Why I am showing you section 146 here is that section 146 says that it is lawful in cross-examination to shake the credit of a person by injuring his character. Okay, so in cross-examination, you can injure the character of a person. And now we know what the meaning of character is. Okay, so that's why I've shown you section 146. which says that in the cross-examination of a person, it is lawful to injure his character. You might have been wondering as to why I had omitted section 53A from our discussion, so the time is now. As you're aware, section 53A has come about by an amendment, and the amendment is the amendment of 2013, a very significant criminal law amendment that had followed as an aftermath of the infamous 2012 December gang rape. All right. So what you can see here is that it specifically speaks about character with regard to previous sexual experience. So it says that evidence cannot be given about previous sexual experience in order to determine the quality of consent. That basically is the point that is given in section 53A. You can pause the video and read that by your own self. It is pretty straightforward and simple to understand. Also, to clarify this point for you, again you need to pause the video. I had intentionally not shown you the proviso to section 146 because I want to show you section 53A first. Okay, so the proviso to section 146 has also come about by the 2013 criminal law amendment, right? And it talks about pretty much the same thing, which says that it is not possible and it is not permissible to put questions as to the general immoral character or previous sexual experience of a victim of these sexual offenses as you find here. Okay, so with this, you've been able to see all of the provisions from section 52 to 55. We've also seen section 14 and we've seen section 146. So we've seen in today's lesson that character includes both reputation and disposition. Reputation is what you are in the eyes of others. Disposition is what you actually are. We've also seen that character requires to be general. On the contrary, when we talk of state of mind under section 14, that requires to be specific. So remember that these are quite the opposite. Then we saw that character, as far as the law of evidence is concerned, applies differently for civil and criminal matters. The law of evidence generally applies alike to both civil and criminal matters. However, there are some provisions where you can see the distinction, and this is one such provision. Also, we saw the provisions relating to cross-examination and also the amendments that were made with regard to sexual offenses. So I hope this lesson was of use to you. Thank you so much for your time and patience. Good day.